Welcome back, welcome back. For those that are getting ready for your test tomorrow, we are here to hopefully get you a little bit more excited than you otherwise might be. If you've joined us before for one of these videos, for any live stream, welcome back. If you haven't been here before, hopefully we get you fired up for the test tomorrow. And again, our main mission or main goal in this is to try to get you guys as excited as possible for test day. So I hope that all makes sense. I hope you guys are doing well. As soon as you guys get into the class, can everybody give me a thumbs up to just let me know who's here? Give me a hello if that works, and then we'll get started here. Great, guys. Yeah, if you guys hear, if you guys just saw my cat in the background, my golden retriever and a cat, and they were playing. Even though the dog is way bigger than the cat, it's the cat seems to take him to task. So if you guys saw my cat, I had to have him in the room so the dog could pay attention. So anyway, that's where that came in. So apologies if that's jumping in here. Hopefully the golden retriever is okay. Anyway, guys. If you guys are joining us today, welcome. Again, we're trying to get you guys psyched out. Habib, welcome. Okay, welcome, guys. Sean, welcome. Guys, welcome to the live stream. If you guys have any questions, if you guys have any questions for me to begin with, then please let me know. Otherwise, we'll try to work through some things that'll hopefully get you psyched up and ready to go. We have some videos that I think will help you in terms of what to have ready the night before the exam, what to be doing as you work through the preparation today. I want to make a statement here real quick. For those that have been waiting around for the CO2 math test, if you guys have seen our videos for the real-time test that we take, we're going to do that a live stream right after this. So like 30 minutes after this is over, I'm going to do a live stream in terms of the CO2 math test, and we're just going to go through the entire exam in real time, but we're going to do it live because we had some editing issues. We couldn't get our editor to edit fast enough to get it ready to go for today's class or for Saturday's test, so that's where we'll be. Is that cool, guys? Can everybody give me a thumbs up? Anybody have any questions at all before we get going here? Otherwise, again, today's video is not really to talk about concept review or anything like that. It's really just to get you guys fired up and ready to go for the test tomorrow if you guys are taking it. But before we get going and before I forget, one of the most important things that you guys can do, let me pull this up here, is to have the 5 essential items ready to go the night before the test. So let me pull this up real quick and post it. I'm very, very adamant that for tomorrow, there's 2 things that you have to be ready to go. We keep talking in these videos about how important it is not to be stressed out, not to be anxious. And so it's really, really, really important that you guys... it's really, really important that you guys understand that and that you guys are ready to go. So here are the 5 essential items to have ready the night before the ACT exam. Okay, I encourage you guys to watch that video, get those things ready to go, and have them ready to go tonight so that when you guys go into test day tomorrow, when you get prepared tomorrow morning, you're not like scrambling around, right? Who's ever done that before where you have to go like turn around, you're in your car and you're going to high school and you have to turn around and all this because you forgot like the big project. I used to do that all the time, and it's so stressful to be in that moment. Another thing that can be very helpful in terms of getting ready to go the night before, think about where getting there early is not something that you want to do in order to psych yourself out more, because sometimes that it's hurt because you're there and you're like, oh my God, I'm about to do this. Instead, getting there early is really important because you can scope it out, right? You can find out where the line is. You're not driving around trying to figure out everything. You just know where you're supposed to go. And that's amazingly a big part of this. Again, control what you can control. That's a huge, huge part of the test. We always talk about that. We're going to do that CO2 math video as soon as this video is over, or 30 minutes after this video is over. And you guys will see that in that ACT math video, one of my goals is going to be to reduce all stress levels. If I can do that on the math test, then I can do that on every section, and it's going to be so, so critical. So when we say things like show up early, it's not because I want you to show up early to hang out, right? It's to show up early so that if something does go wrong, if you can't find the entrance, all those things, we want you to get there early so that you know what to do. It's way better to be in the class. We've had this happen to a few students. Unfortunately, there are some bad proctoring test locations, right? Where the proctors just aren't on top of it, or they're not very organized. That does happen. And we've actually had students like get there at 8 o'clock, check in at 8:15, and then they don't actually start the test until 9. So that's like, you sit there for a while. But what I want to remind you is if that happens, you're still controlling what you can control. If you have to sit there and wait for everybody else to come into the room and they're really disorganized, it is what it is at that point. You can be doing some practice problems on your phone. You can go to the restroom, but at least you're there. At least you know the test is going to start. That's way, way better than being there 20 minutes late and trying to rush and trying to figure out where you're supposed to be. Because the moment you sit down, then you're already flustered for the day. Then you're not thinking about English. You're thinking about, oh my God, where was I? All that kind of stuff. Do I have everything that I need? Where's my calculator? We don't want that feeling. We want you to control what you can control so that the moment that you guys sit down, you're ready to go. And that leads into the kind of that warm-up aspect that we always talk about. And we'll get into that, but I want that to be very, very prevalent as you guys get ready for the test tomorrow. Yeah, so guys, questions about the watches. So a question about the watch. It's very hit or miss with the watches. So what I would say, on the video, again, if you want to take the chance, I think it's up to you. I think I'll say it this way. I think objectively, there's a very low likelihood that you get a proctor, 1 in literally 5,000, that would ever think about checking your watch or checking your calculator. I know that there's obviously certain calculator types that are allowed and aren't allowed. Having said that, I think that technically the only watch that's actually allowed by the ACT is one that doesn't make noise, and that it might even be down to the point where it's like an analog watch with the actual hands. You might be able to use a digital watch. I'm not totally sure on that. But one of the things that we do, and the reason I don't know that question, or I don't know about watches very often, is because in most of our programs, unless it's an unusual circumstance for a student, we actually recommend that students don't wear watches. Because for the reasons that we recommend that, it's because for all of our other videos, you guys know that my number one thing is just not getting stressed out. Now, for some students, again, we try to give every perspective here because we have worked with a lot of students. For some students that we've worked with, not wearing a watch is going to make them way more stressed out than wearing one. And that's not for everybody. But for the most part, when you're wearing a watch, and this used to happen to me when I was a kid, is if I was wearing a watch, all I was doing was looking at the watch, right? I would be like constantly looking down. And you guys, for those that watched our CO2 reading video, even though I had like 7 minutes left for the last passage, timing was still not of a concern to me. And so I think that the benefit to that is that you guys will, by not wearing a watch or by kind of reducing the thought of time, is that at the end of the test, if you guys are really accurate, right? We had a student this was the case with a student recently. Let me pull this up on the screen. We had a student recently who on the reading test, who was typically very, very good at reading. Let me show you guys this scale. Okay, so this student was really strong in reading and knew that, so she knew that she was going to do well on reading. And on her first ever ACT, this is now back in December, she's a senior now. In her first ever ACT, and I think she could attest to this if she's watching, I don't think she is, but I think she is taking the test tomorrow. Okay, so one of the things that we saw was that she was really strong in reading. For whatever reason on test day, she felt pretty good about English, she said. She felt pretty good about math. But for whatever reason on reading, she was way slow. She was way slower than she normally was. Normally she was in like the 34 range for reading. And that was her best section. And for whatever reason on test day, she was really slow. She said the first passage kind of threw her off. And this is the first test she took back in December. And when she got to question number 20 on the reading test, she realized that she only had time. I mean, this is a person that's expecting to get through all 4 passages. She realized that she only had time for pretty much the last passage. She had like 11 minutes left for the last passage. or for the third passage, which would be your last passage. And what I wish I would have communicated better, and I didn't because she had been testing so well, I should have still kept this thought in mind, is that even if she would have just taken a deep breath, because she was 20 for 20 at that point, she hadn't missed a question. If she would have just taken a deep breath and done the thing where it's the floor score, all that kind of stuff that we talked about yesterday, and she just focused on the third passage to make sure that she got all of those questions right to get to a 30, and then guessed the rest of the way down, at the very minimum, right, she would have been at a 30 on the reading test and potentially at a 31 using the guessing technique. But instead what happened is when she got to question number 20, she got a little flustered and started scrambling on the last two passages. And as a result, she ended up missing, I think, 10 or 11 questions total over the last two passages. So she ended up getting a 29, which I think on that December test was like a 26 or 27. And that was 7 points lower than she had ever scored before, 6 or 7 lower than anything she'd ever done on a practice test. So she ended up scrambling, getting this 29 out of 40 correct, when in reality she was such a strong reader that if she would have just taken a deep breath, and then we communicated this, by the way, there's an end to this story. We communicated this idea to her after she was done, that if she would have just taken a deep breath and gotten to this point, right, to get to a 30 out of 40, and guessed the rest of the way down, there was nothing to worry about, because the worst thing that could have happened to her was she was in that 30 to 31 range because she was already such a great reader. So the reason I bring this stuff up, guys, and the reason I want to talk about that is that there is some stress tomorrow. Okay? Yeah, so awesome. Yeah, again, awesome, by the way, has been, thank you for continuing to participate in these and for providing your perspective, because it helps when we have real students commenting and commenting their own thoughts on this. When you get into that moment that you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, there is nothing that I can do about that. As much as I want to hype you guys up, as much as I want to get you guys fired up for this, when you're in the test, it's up to you. And so when you feel that moment of stress, and awesome, this applies, and obviously for everybody else, this is what we told this student who then ended up taking the February test, and thankfully she's done now. She doesn't have to take the test anymore. But in February, instead of getting overwhelmed, we just said, look, if you're running a little bit behind time from what you do on the practice test, that's fine. On the February test, she was still running behind time, but not as badly, and she ended up getting to 35 questions. She did some easy questions in the last passage, and she ended up getting to 35 correct, guessed the rest of the way down, and ended up with a 37, which I think on the December test was actually a 33. And she ended up with a 33 on the reading test. I'm sorry, on the February test, it was a 33, and she ended up with a 33 on reading. But again, I wish we would have communicated that to her in December, because when you guys get into that moment, there will be that moment of just like, I'm feeling completely overwhelmed with this. Take a deep breath. I want you guys to understand that this is so counterintuitive to a timed test, but it's really the kind of the psychological aspect of what these tests are. If you guys look at this and you think to yourself, okay, I need to answer a certain number of questions. If you're through 20 questions, right, let me give you an example again. If you're through 20 questions on reading and this is your best section, or you're through 40 questions on math and you realize, oh no, I'm running low on time, if you take a deep breath for a minute and remember, and my voice comes into the back of your head and tells you to keep moving and don't worry about the timing, if you have 20 questions left on math with only 10 minutes to go, and usually you get a 32 on the math test, well, look, if you get 40 questions right and you have 10 questions, right, you do 10 questions instead of scrambling to get the rest of the 20 done, you can get 40, right? You can get somewhere in this range, and then you can guess the rest of the way down, and boom, 53, right? There's the 53. That's what, when we talked about it yesterday, when we talked about setting a floor score, that's exactly what I mean. Is on the worst possible circumstance, when you're running low on time and something just hasn't gone according to plan to where your practice tests were, this is where you need to be. You need to be in this mindset of like, okay, that's okay. I know at the very least I've been very accurate to the questions I've answered so far, and that's probably why my timing is behind, because I've spent time, I got all 40 of the first math questions right. I'm actually sitting in a great place. If I have 10 minutes left, and let's say in that 10 minutes, right, there's 10 minutes for 20 questions, rather than scrambling in those last 20, I'm just going to find 8 of the last 20 that I know how to do. I'm going to find 8 of them, and that's it. And usually I'm scoring a 33 on the math test, right? Usually I score a 33 on the math test, but I'm way behind on my time right now. Okay, so I'm going to get to 48. But just like I did on the first 40 questions, I'm going to be 100% accurate on those 8, And I know that this wasn't my peak performance, but I'm still going to maximize my score given the circumstances, given where I'm at right now. I'm going to be an independent thinker. I'm going to think to myself, you know what, I still got this. I can get 8 more questions right in 10 minutes. Okay, 48, you leave the last 12 blank. Let's go back up here to our scales and our answer sheets. Look at this, guys. Okay, this is the most important thing. I said that you guys can improve your scores by 4 to 5 points before tomorrow if you understand how these scales work, because it will allow you to take so much stress off. Look what happens, guys. If I get 48 questions right? Now I'm 48 of 48. I usually get, let's say you usually get a 33 on the math test, which is an incredible score in itself. You've gotten that on all practice tests. You get 48. You find your guessing letter. We did this yesterday. Whoops. That's a lot of B's and G's, right? Based on your guessing letter. We talked about how to do that. That's plus 5. And all of a sudden, that looks very similar to a 53 out of 60. And just because you didn't freak out, because you guessed on those last questions, but you remained accurate, look at that, 53 out of 60 is a 32. So on your worst possible day, this is the whole point I'm trying to make. On your worst possible day, when you feel like you're way behind on time, if you just remain focused on accuracy, you would have only dropped 1 point from maybe where your practice test was, because you still stayed focused on accuracy. And again, for those that haven't seen the CO2 reading video that we put out a couple days ago, please watch that, because it's a great example. Unintentionally, it was a great example. When I got to the last passage on the reading test, I think I had about 7 minutes left, and I still decided to read the entire passage. I put my head down and read a little bit faster and didn't talk as much, but I still decided to read the whole passage and not get flustered and not get worried, because I knew that I could still get 30, I could get 7 of the last 10 questions right and still end up with like a 32 on the reading section. Guys, this happens to me too. You just have an off day sometimes, and when I feel like I'm capable of getting a 36 on reading, sometimes I just have a bad day, right? I'm distracted, I'm thinking about something else. You know, who am I gonna, all the stuff that goes along with high school. I got in a car accident, I got a speeding ticket on my way here, my mom's gonna kill me, right? It's all those kinds of thoughts that suddenly make our 36 that we typically get come down a little bit, but that's all okay. Another great video that we've done in the past is the BO4 math video. BO4 math is a really good one to go over, solely because I did it without a calculator, and I wanted to demonstrate. This was actually the result of, well, I forgot my calculator that we were going to film like an idiot, but the reason that we did that is because we've actually had students run out of batteries. No matter how many times we say it, right? They've run out of batteries on the test. And in that moment, most of the students will freak out, right? Most students will be like, oh my God, I'm going to fail this. I always do well in math, and now I'm not going to be able to do well at all. Guys, guess what? There are still so many questions you can answer on that math test, and you'll see this in the video, in the real-time video we do today. We're going to do the math video live because we couldn't get our editor done, okay? And so you're going to see that today when we go through it in an hour or so. When we go through the math video, what's the maximum score I can get today given the circumstances? That's what you have to keep thinking about. And if you do that, you're going to do really well. That's the bottom line. Okay, so enough of me talking there. Enough of me talking. Let me see here. Okay, guys, so a couple things here. Yeah, guys, so a couple things. We had a couple good questions here. Predictions for test difficulty tomorrow, I have no idea. But again, that's one of those things that you can't control that. I can't stress it enough that the one thing that made me a great test taker as a kid, and this is just by sheer luck, honestly, guys, this is one of the things that irritates me so much, and I've said this to you guys on these live streams before, is anybody who sounds arrogant, or if there's somebody that you know that's arrogant or that's kind of putting it in your face about what score they get, it's just so ridiculous. We had tutors at a company I used to work for, and it was just like, dude, who cares? You know, it's just taking a test. It's not going to define you. Tomorrow when you wake up, it's 8 a.m. on a Saturday. You're going to leave the test at 12:30 on a Saturday. The sun in most places, right, it's still going to be shining depending on where you live. If you're in the southern hemisphere, I think it's end of winter right now, so maybe not there. But if in the U.S., it's probably sun's still going to be shining. You're still going to be ready to go. You can go hang out with your friends. You can do anything but think about the ACT, but you're still the same person. There was the biggest advantage I had as a test taker when I was a kid is I was just going in to do my best and then to get out of there and go hang out with my friends. That's it. I wanted to do well in the moment. I figured if I was going to be there, I might as well compete, and I wanted to beat the kid sitting next to me or the right. I was very competitive in that way. But as soon as it was over, and this was kind of the story of my life as a high school kid, it's like, whatever, I'm not paying attention, I'm not going to do the work. And that's a huge problem outside of the test. But when you're in the test, having that mindset of like, let's just see what happens and then go for it is so helpful. Right? It's just so helpful that you just kind of roll with the punches and you see what happens on test day. And if it doesn't go as well as you want it to, guess what? Your life is still going to be great. It doesn't mean this is not going to define you in any way, I promise. Unless you become an ACT tutor or teacher that does these YouTube videos, right? If you're one of the lowly ACT teachers that do these videos, there's nothing you need to worry about. And so when you think about the scale for tomorrow, who knows? I have no idea what the scale is going to be tomorrow. None. It's not something to think about or to worry about because all you need to know is how many questions generally on the scale you need to answer correctly. Okay? Knowing the scales, knowing how the scales work, it's a very distinct thing. Knowing how the scales work is extremely important, but worrying about one specific scale over another doesn't help in any way. Okay, so again, understanding that a 32 on the math section is typically somewhere between 51 and 54 problems depending on test difficulty. I can't stress this enough, and again, you guys are going to see this on the real-time math video for CO2 that we do in an hour. If you guys want to tune in for that, we'll fire that up here in an hour or so. When you guys get to this, you guys are going to see that if the test is difficult and you're using the 3-pass math method on math or on science, you are in great shape. Do you know why? Can anybody tell me why? Oh yeah, awesome, and great point there. Taking tests with your mask on for tomorrow, it's kind of hit or miss because it's really quick, right? But I completely agree with Awesome's comment there. If you guys see it in the chat, okay. Yeah, I'll use the reading scale by the way, guys. If you guys have any questions on reading, of course, ask about the scale. But awesome comment about taking with a mask on. Again, for tomorrow, it's kind of a moot point. You just kind of have to battle through it. It is what it is. But that's another thing that you have to overcome. You're going to have to take the test with a mask on if you're a senior taking it this fall. That's going to be the bottom line. So just get over it. You know, one of the things that I want to continue to reiterate so that it doesn't sound like it shouldn't be arrogant because it's not. But one of the things that I was good at as a test taker is it is what it is. If I have to wear a mask, you have to wear a mask. That's not going to change. And if you don't think about that for 1 second, then all of your brain power is going to something way more productive. So to Awesome's point about taking a practice test with a mask on, just take it, even though it's uncomfortable, even though you might not want to, just take it and you kind of deal with it. Right? It's putting yourself in the most comfortable environment possible. Okay? So yeah, guys, again, right? So Alan just said it perfectly. You guys go to school. If you're going to in-person school right now, you're wearing a mask anyway. So boom, right? That's a huge, that gives you, it's just like a normal day. Think about it this way, guys. Do you know why? Does anybody know why the ACT is at 8, SAT is the same way at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning? It's not arbitrary. That's not just because they wanted to do it at the time. The real reason they do it is because it's just like school. Most schools start at 8 to 8:30 in the morning, just like this test does. They want to simulate this like you'd be going to school. In a lot of ways, the ACT and the SAT are trying to help you. I know that you guys probably don't feel that way. At least the Reddit community, I know, doesn't feel that way necessarily about the ACT. But in some ways, they are. I mean, the fact that you can sit down and work really hard to focus on a test, I know it doesn't feel like this sometimes, but think about this. From an equity standpoint, if you can sit down, I know you guys work so hard. If you sit down and you take a test, and that means, like, I know at the University of Texas, Texas schools, if you get a certain ACT score, Florida maybe, right? You get a scholarship to go to those schools. That's incredible considering you can work hard to get there. Now I know that there's some problems with the ACT, but don't worry about those. There are problems with everything. There are problems with the ACT. It's going to be the fact that they're not responding to your questions. The communication has been so bad the last 2 or 3 months. But right now, that is what it is. You can't control that. Your only job as a student taking this test tomorrow is to do your best. To sit there, to understand the circumstances during the test, where you are, what you need to do, and then just be accurate on the questions that you answer. And if you guys can do that, I promise you'll do well. Is that cool? Yeah, so guys, sorry, I just saw this. In terms of the three-pass method, in terms of the three-pass method, yeah, we're gonna do a math video here, a real-time math video at 2:30 Pacific. Excuse me, 2:30 Pacific. I encourage you guys to check that out. We'll be doing the three-pass method for the math test, and all of our real-time videos that we've done in the past. In fact, let me just, we actually have a video specifically talking about the three-pass method with science. Let me get that ready for you guys. Who's ready to go for tomorrow? While I'm getting this video and posting it, how many of you guys are ready to go? How many of you guys are getting fired up? I know it's not the first thing that you want to do, and I know you're not going to be as excited as you could be about other things you're doing in life. But given the fact that you have to, for those that are taking it tomorrow, given the fact that you have to take it tomorrow, how many of you guys are ready to go? Yeah, guys, here's the three-pass method video, specifically related. Okay, this is that video right there is actually specifically related to the science test. Yeah, guys, so that three-pass is specifically related to the science test. Guys, if you guys are excited and nervous, that's a great thing. Let me tell you what nerves do. And I had nerves before I took this test too. I don't want to sound nonchalant because I wanted to do well. I wanted to be competitive, so I wanted to do well. So the nerves thing, though, there's a fine line between this. But if you play sports or if you're in the play, when you're getting ready for a performance in the play, or if you dance, right, there's some nerves that go along with that because you want to do well. The key is harnessing those nerves because that's going to lead to extreme focus. Nerves, right, lead to extreme focus, and that's an incredible thing. Nerves that lead to stress and anxiety is very, very bad for testing. If we can harness these nerves, right, that means that you care, right? Nerves mean you care. If you weren't nervous about something, you're just like whatever. Right? You're not nervous about driving today because you don't think about it. Some of you might, right? Some of you guys are 16, 17 years old. Some of you guys might. But we want to harness these nerves into making it very, very focused rather than very, very stressful. Focus on what you can do. Focus on the test, not how you're going to do on the test. Right? Focus on the question in front of you. Do I know this? No. So let me move on immediately so I can find questions that I do know how to do. Okay, that's great, guys. Flora, Sean, you guys are going to do great. And guys, again, this is not going to be a defining moment for you guys in your lives, right? You want to do well tomorrow, and I understand that, and I want you to do well. And I had nerves when I was your age too, doing the same stuff. Even when we do these real-time videos, I have nerves because it's nerve-wracking, right? I mean, we're going to do a live video today on the CO2 math test. I hope I know this stuff. But the reason we started posting those real-time videos of me taking it is to show you that I do this every day. And I was a good test taker in high school, and I still was stressed and tired and anxious and unfocused and worried about this or that or whatever. And that all happens. But when you get into that moment to take the test, you got to be ready to go. All that stuff can go to the side for a second, and you focus on the test. And guess what? If you do well on that test, if you're focused, and you just think to yourself, let me do the best I can do today. I don't care about anybody else. I'm just going to compete with myself. I'm going to look at the kid next to me, and I'm not going to give up. And if you do that tomorrow, you will get a lot of questions right. I promise you will get a lot of questions right. Okay, and again, we'll walk you guys through the math stuff. That three-pass video I just posted is really good for the science test. It kind of walks through what those look like. We're going to go through that three-pass method for the math test here in like an hour. Guys, in terms of waking up, it's a great question. So here's the things that I want to talk about. You have that 5 essential items video, and in fact, let me post that. Alan, it's a great question in terms of waking up. 5 essential items to have ready. Have ready. Okay, guys, so here's one of the things that I think that I'm pretty adamant about as well. Don't let your parents convince you that you need to go to bed like 10 hours earlier than you normally do. Okay? If you typically go to bed, I said this yesterday too, but if you typically go to bed at like 2 in the morning, then that's another problem. You probably shouldn't be doing that. But if you go to bed at 2 in the morning, or if you go to bed at 11, I would say 11 o'clock is a pretty good time. Maybe a little earlier, 10:30. But this is a true statement backed up by scientific findings. The optimal number of hours for somebody to sleep is 8 hours. More than that is not optimal. So 8 hours is the optimal number. If you guys go to bed at 10:30, right, that gives you guys 8 hours. That leads you to 6:30 a.m. And I think that that's a perfect time to wake up. That's the time I would wake up now. Probably woke up at like 7:30 when I was taking this test, but that doesn't work very well. Okay, so you guys got to make sure that you're working through this stuff. Fry Guy, what's going on, man? Thanks, guys, by the way, for participating in this. So 10:30, Ellen, wake up at 6:30. And this kind of leads into the last point that I want you guys to have ready to go. Okay, if you guys are working through this stuff, I want you guys to be ready to do some warm-up problems in the morning. So the reason that 6:30 is a good time, obviously if you have to go further for the test tomorrow, and some of you guys I know do have to do that, if you have to go an hour to go to a different county that might be open, this is a very different time than any time in the past. So that has to play into this. But the reason I think 6:30 is good is because typically we have students that usually have to drive like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to their testing location. And so the way that I like to look at this is if you wake up at 6:30, whoa, that's not right. If you guys wake up at 6:30, right, you have some breakfast, don't overeat, don't slam a Monster energy drink, right? Don't do a huge Red Bull if you don't typically take Red Bull in the morning. It's going to get you really jittery and like so amped up and like, oh, I got to go, right? I got to take this test. Don't do that, okay? That's going to be way too much. You guys got to just take a deep breath. If you typically drink coffee in the morning, then have a coffee, right? Or if you typically drink whatever, water, then have water. But don't do something that's way out of the ordinary routine for school. Take this like you're going to school. Because ultimately you are. You're going to a high school. It might not be your high school, but you're going to a high school that tons of students go to every single day. Okay? And so 6:30 in the morning allows you to do this. You wake up, you maybe get up, take a shower, whatever. You get done with the shower maybe about 6:50. Have some breakfast. Now we're looking at like, I don't know, 7:10 or so. Okay, and then from 7:10 to like, I'm going to say 7:30. Okay, whoops, I don't know why I just did that. I was looking at the screen, sorry. Okay, I would say 7:10 to maybe like 7:30. You do some practice problems. Okay, you do some practice problems. I've obviously said this before. I highly recommend you guys use the StarU app. It's free, and it's especially important for the ACT test takers. With the SAT, I always recommend Khan Academy is great as well. But I truly do believe that our books, our tutorials, I help edit them. We have a primary writer who's a big-time SAT and ACT tutor and has been forever. These are based on real questions that you see on tests. And so I think it's really close to the real content. We're not just guessing. We're combing through tests. That's why I've had to comb through all of these in the last 10 years to make practice questions that actually reflect the real thing. And so when you guys wake up, the two things that I would recommend is if you're at home, the ACT, you luck out because the English section is the easiest section if you've been memorizing your grammar rules, and you get to start with that section. So that's a great feeling. So if you guys are at home and you are ready to take this exam, you're ready to, right? I would do a practice English passage from a real practice test. Even if you've already done that practice English passage before, it doesn't matter. The point of it is not to get all the questions right. It's just to get your brain thinking like, oh yeah, I'm about to do this. I want to make sure I get a few questions going. Because we've realized as we've done more of these and graded more practice tests from students, there's so many students that miss like 5 out of the first 10 English questions on the ACT solely because they're not warmed up. They miss 5 out of 10 and then they get like 50 right in a row. And that tells me that has nothing to do with the first 10 questions being really hard. It's just your brain's not ready. You're still a little nervous. You're still a little amped up. Instead, I want you guys to just think, okay, if I do these practice questions and I get those nerves out of the way and I'm like, this is just ACT English. I can crush this section. Then when you start the real thing, it's like not a big deal at all. You're just ready. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Thumbs up if that makes sense. Guys, if you don't typically drink caffeine, by the way, I just saw that question. This massive water bottle here that I just got. If you guys don't typically drink caffeine, I'm so bad at drinking water, I had to challenge myself, and I'm still not going to be very good at it. Yeah, so look at that. Look what Awesome just said. Okay, Awesome has been a very, very great contributor to our participation in these chats, and continues to contribute things that I see from students all the time. Right, Awesome said yesterday during the review, if you guys saw that there were like typically gets 26, 27 questions right, and got 33 on the reading test because of using this kind of 3-pass method, right? Or not being worried about the timing, just being worried about reading and reading to focus and then answering the questions. The English section kind of went the other way, it sounds like, right? Where you missed 3 questions just because you're amped up, you're ready to go for this test, but then you're not focused on that. You're focused on like, whoa, my God, what's the time, right? You're thinking about that already and you just started. So again, my recommendation is to do a practice English passage at home. And then when you guys are done with that, let me show you this. If you guys don't have the StarU app, we'll send out a reminder tomorrow. But if you guys don't have StarU, I would highly recommend downloading it. It's free. It's in the App Store. It's at www.staru.co. We wrote it and we put all of our content on there. And it just allows you to do these. Let me show you guys. So if you pull, you'll see this in the background of my screen real quick. Give me one sec. If you guys just do practice problems, if you do a full practice passage, the goal that we had by creating this and putting it on your phone is that if you do a practice passage at home, most students don't want to bring the passage to the test location. Okay, so no guys, yeah, not a full test, just a practice passage for English in the morning. I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, but if you guys go into the app and you have this on your phone, you just click ACT SAT practice lessons. Okay, and then you just click ACT English. And while you're standing in line, instead of being worried and talking to your friend about how badly you guys are going to do, I've seen that before, right? You guys know that story where it's like, oh my God, I'm what am I doing? Or we're going to fail this, right? Instead of doing that, just do some practice problems on your phone. So you're still thinking about ACT English and you're not getting psyched out, right? You're not looking at the students next to you and like, whoa, what are they thinking? Or like getting mad at your parent because they're standing in line with you. That doesn't help you get ready for the test. Yeah, guys, no, so let me clarify here. In terms of the practice passage for tomorrow, the English section, I would recommend either doing practice questions on the app, like you can just come in here and do a few like pronouns questions, that's usually a pretty easy one, or read about pronouns. A great one to do, there's grammar quizzes on here. A great one to do is grammar quiz number 2 because it involves punctuation, and that's a really important one. So you just click tap, right? You tap to start, and then you can do these practice problems as you go on your phone. But in terms of the English passage tomorrow, just one single English passage out of the 5 would be a great way to warm up. Not doing a full test, and I wouldn't do a full test today unless if you are the type of student that typically does well when they do a full test the day before. Some students do, they just feel more comfortable that way. Then by all means you can do it. But ultimately today is about just feeling comfortable for you. If you're going to get stressed out about taking a full practice test or a full practice section, then that's going to be really counterproductive for tomorrow. Yeah, guys, so a couple questions here about tips to prevent careless mistakes. The easiest tip, really hard to implement, really easy to say, is don't worry about timing. If you're trying to get, we've actually had a very high percentage of our students, when compared to the national average, have gotten a 36 on this test. Again, that has nothing to do with me being a great teacher or me being really smart. It has everything to do with students wanting to work hard and then understanding these scales, everything that I'm trying to put out. But we would never, ever, even for a student that's looking to get a 36, ever put the expectation that they should get a 36. We would always say, do your best, don't focus on timing, focus on accuracy, and set your floor score at a 33. So if you're looking to get a 36, be okay with a 33, because if tomorrow happens and you get a 33, then it is what it is. If tomorrow happens and you just have a great day, which happens a lot to students, and you don't have the pressure of me telling you like you got to get a 36, then all of a sudden, if you get a 36, then that's unbelievable, but there's not that pressure. And when you take the pressure away, it's amazing how many questions you can answer because the questions really aren't that hard. What's your approach to understanding the science section? So understanding science is definitely about that 3-pass method. There's 20 to 25 questions. And guys, by the way, if you have any specific questions, during our we do comprehensive reviews before every big test. So we're going to do another one next Thursday. If you guys didn't get a chance to see that yesterday, we talked about all of these specific points about each section. So here's the comprehensive review from yesterday. We live stream these the Thursday before any big test, comprehensive review. And so I would encourage you guys to watch that comprehensive review if you have more intricate questions. And then we're going to respond. If you guys just comment on that video in the comment section, our teachers and tutors are going to be around tonight to respond to any of those questions. So just watch that. If you guys have more specific questions on our strategies, our methods, we talked for 2.5 hours about that yesterday. And then comment below the video with any specific questions as you watch, and our teachers and tutors will answer those tonight. Let's see here, another question. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, so Alan, I would listen to Awesome. The comment there was about which way to do the reading passages. It's going to be pretty specific to you. For me and some of the videos that we've posted, I think the first one, the prose fiction passage, is the hardest. Not because the passage is very hard. It's actually pretty easy to read. But the one that I struggle with is the first one, because I actually think the question types in the first passage are the hardest and the most time-consuming. In the other three passages, even though they're more boring to read as a passage, the questions are super straightforward because the passages are very dull and very boring, but they're also very straightforward and very direct. Yeah, and by the way, guys, passage A, passage B, I completely agree there with Awesome as well. The passage A, passage B tends to be very easy. If you do passage A, then do passage A questions, passage B, then passage B questions. Those tend to be very easy passages because it's so easy to compartmentalize. If you just do passage A, it's only half a passage, and then you get 3 easy answers. And then you do passage B, you get 4 questions or 3 questions, and then it's 3-4 really easy answers, and then you can do the comparison questions. So I think those double passages tend to go pretty well. Yeah, guys, so I don't skim. We don't recommend skimming. So any questions about skimming, we don't recommend doing that. Again, if you guys watch that comprehensive review video that I just posted, you can see all the things the reasons. Now, that's not to say, again, I like to be as objective as possible. That's not to say that students can't do that method. We talked about it yesterday, but there's really 2 methods to the reading section realistically. There's like the read fast, skim method, which kind of is the same thing. Read fast and skim and then save time for more for the questions. Or there's read really, really carefully and read. Don't worry about how long it's taking to read the passage, because then the questions are extremely easy because it's such a short passage. You should be able to retain it, especially if you're not really worried about how quickly you're moving through it. You're just worried about focusing on reading and to read and really try to comprehend it. The questions actually become questions that you can absolutely fly through. Yeah, if you just read it, guys, I highly recommend doing that. Here's the ACT. By the way, I'm posting this in the comments section. Yeah, guys, so here's the thing. Yeah, do what's best for you, and I agree. Again, Awesome can probably teach this at this point, right? This is every comment that you see from Awesome is pretty close, but that contributing for like the last 6 or 7 months in terms of what these live streams are. And I completely agree with that other comment is do what's best for you. Fast reading, it doesn't work because it's fast reading and skimming. Like, we can say fast reading, but if you guys want to see our real-time videos of me taking the reading section, that was always the one that I felt the best on, because I knew that if I just read it, one of the things that's happened on these tests is that everybody, because there's an industry to this now, and that all this stuff. I mean, for me, as an example, I worked for companies, and when you look at this, the test is called reading, right? It's called reading for a reason. The ACT is not trying to trick you with that. And that's the thing that's been lost in all this, is that this is still a really good measure. Not necessarily, you can argue about what the content is on the ACT or the SAT. You can argue about that all day, and there's really not a right answer to that. But in terms of being focused for 4 hours and being really focused, this is a great representation still of that. And that's why Harvard, right? Harvard's really got really smart people as administrators at Harvard. They still think this test and the SAT are really important things for admissions. And it's not just arbitrary. It's not like they're not thinking about it, because they get plenty of pressure as to why these tests are not good representations of that. And yet they stand up to that pressure when they don't need to. These aren't affiliated with any college, solely because it is a really good representation of your ability to stay focused and then block out the stress. The best example that I can use, guys, if you want to think about, the best way maybe to think about these tests is, yes, again, I will fully admit that there are issues with this. But if you think about somebody that's going to MIT, right, and they're going to be putting, I always use this example, they're going to be putting the last of the heat shield tiles on the space shuttle that's coming back from Mars for Elon Musk, right? That's their job. They're going to be figuring out the best and most efficient way to put the heat shield on. That person is reliant, that 7 lives in that space shuttle are going to be reliant on that person to put that heat shield in the right place. That takes an immense amount of focus to make sure that everything is looking perfect and that you're not making simple mistakes. Now, that's a very extreme example, but it's why MIT looks for the top math students in the world to make sure on these tests that if you're in a stressful environment that you can look through this math section and you can get every question right. Because the expectation is going to be that you get the question or the plate, the heat shield right on the space shuttle when you're a rocket scientist, because MIT wants you to be a great representation for you as for the school, right? I'll try to give the analogy sometimes, because I think it gets lost that these tests, you can argue the content of these tests all day, but ultimately I want you guys to be hyped up and ready to focus tomorrow. Because if you're that and you're just focused on accuracy and you're blocking out all of this stuff about the score, you're going to do really well. Yeah, so again, if you're skimming too quickly, if you're reading too fast that you don't understand anything, you end up doing what we call splitting strategies. I'm going to give 2 more things here real quick. Let's see here. Okay, guys. I'm going to give you guys 2 more examples here to try to get hyped up. For tomorrow, I want you guys to think about it this way. I want you to think about this exam tomorrow. And just like we talked about yesterday, for tomorrow's test, I want you guys to think about answering a number of questions correctly, not getting a score. Again, as we talked about yesterday, everybody is so focused on the score. And it's become especially true because there's so much competition now that everybody knows what their goal score is and how that's going to apply to XYZ school or XYZ scholarship, whatever. And so when we do that, we start thinking about what we're doing instead of how we're going to do it, or we're focusing on what we're looking at. And so for tomorrow, if your goal score is to get a 28 on the reading section, right? This is very comparable. Then you should be thinking about this not as a 28 on the reading test, but how do I answer, what's the best way for me to answer 31 questions correctly? And this is why I say for the reading test to be really focused all the way through, even if it means you can only get through 3 passages. If you get 28 questions right on reading, if you just get 28, so that's not even 3/4 of the test. That would feel in school from a psychological standpoint, that feels like a 75. That feels like a C. Or 70. It feels like a 70%. That feels like a C. Okay? C minus. But on this test, if you get 28 questions right, but you know you're accurate because you're just focused on those 28 questions, even though there's 40 available, and your goal is to get a 28 because that's where you think that where you've been practice testing. Again, just like we saw in the math section, if you're truly focused and you're taking your time to answer and be accurate, right? Let's say again, we get to 28 questions. And we have videos, guys, that actually that go through this, right? We have math videos that go through how this works and how to raise your math score 3 to 4 points overnight by simply understanding how much more important accuracy is than timing. If you get 28 questions right tomorrow, okay, and then you go back and you use our guessing technique. If you guys haven't seen the guessing video, I highly recommend checking that out on the channel. Okay, if you guys haven't seen the guessing video, all you have to do is find the letter, right, that's least used, and what do you know? You get 28 questions right, but then you guess the same letter down right. You guess the same letter down all the way. That's plus 4. All of a sudden, you're at 32 out of 40. And if your goal score was to get a 28, well, I'll do you one better, and you actually get a 29 by only answering 70% of the questions, as long as you're accurate. And then we get students sometimes that say, like, well, what happens if I'm not accurate? Well, it's like if your goal score is to get in the top 10, 5, 10, 15% of all students, you have to be accurate. Like we had one student one time that was like, well, I don't know if I can be accurate on the first 32 questions and then guess. Like, but your goals, you said your goal score was a 33. That's in the top 1.5% of all students that take this exam. You're going to have to be accurate no matter what strategy you use. The reason this works, and again, I want to continue to reiterate this, is that the reason this works is because it takes so much stress away. That's the biggest thing. It takes so much stress away that if you just take a deep breath and you don't think about this as the ACT, you just think about how am I going to do the best I can do today? I'm going to get 28 questions right. And I know that feels weird because at 28 out of 40 in school feels like a 70%. And when I go home and tell my parents that I got a 70% on my math final, I'm not going to feel very great. But instead, on this test, because of the scale, you get a 29 on the reading test, which is in the top 10% of all students that take this across the country. What feels like a 70% is actually a 90%. That's an A-. Okay, it's so important. Let me show you guys. I'll send the guessing video over here, guys. And then, whoops. Let's see if I can find this for you. Okay, here it is. Being an effective ACT guesser. Hey guys, so that's the great guessing video if you guys want to check that out. After you see the guessing video, you guys are going to be shocked. I can't, and if you guys want to see it put into action, we have a couple videos where we'll take these math sections. Let me see if we can find these. And then I do have to run, guys, because I gotta get some food before we do this live math review. This live SAT or ACT math. So give me one sec here. Yeah, guys. So in terms of the guessing stuff, here's ACT reading demonstrating how to be a great guesser. ACT math demonstrating how to be a great guesser. Okay, guys. So there's two videos that actually walk through basically how to improve your score 3 to 4 points overnight. And I always used to hate saying that because I thought it was just like a marketing thing. And for honestly, because I've worked for a lot of these companies, it's 1,000% a marketing thing. But that's why we film these videos, is so that I don't have to just tell you that this works. Is that if you see it, if you actually take the time to watch these videos, I guarantee it works every time. And we do have students like Awesome who has been very diligent in watching these live streams can tell you that this stuff really does work. It's not me just saying it. We created this channel. We want you guys we want to give these resources away to you guys for free because I'm a huge believer that education should not be just available. If you want to work hard and you want to learn more, it should not just be available to a certain group of people. It should be available to everybody. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to work hard. I'm not going to do it for you. You have to do it yourself because ultimately you have to take the test yourself. You have to live your own life. Tomorrow, you can make the decision to be either really anxious and worry about everything that could go wrong, or you can be really positive and you can be like, you know what, let's do this today. Let's get ready to go. Let's see how well I can do today. And if you guys do that and you work hard, I promise you life will continue to go well for you. People will want to meet you. People will want to hire you for a job. People will want to accept you into their college, whatever. But if you keep working hard and you keep a positive attitude, the sky is the limit. If you go into the test tomorrow thinking about all the bad things that could happen and how you're going to fail and you're talking with your friend, it's not going to go well It just isn't. That positivity is so, so important. Positive momentum. Keep moving forward. Keep it simple. Right? One more question. One more question. How do I get one more question right rather than giving up? If there's two decisions, getting it right or giving up and getting it wrong, pick the better one. There's a very clear better path in that decision making. Right? Pick the better one. If it's my voice in the back of your head, okay? If my voice is in the back of your head tomorrow and you guys get annoyed, but you're like, you know what? Chase was right. I got to keep moving. It might be annoying, but you keep moving forward. You keep doing one more question, and guess what? One more question, especially as you're getting tired on the reading and science section, I can't stress this enough. Look at this. One more question, right? Chase is annoying. Well, he's annoying, but one more question. Now I'm getting a 33. Now I'm getting 34 right. Now I'm getting 35 right because I'm not giving up. I'm staying focused. I'm finding the easy question so that I can keep moving forward. If you guys do those things, I promise tomorrow will go well. If you just decide that it's too much, this is too much for you, then it's not going to go as well. Take a deep breath when you feel that moment of stress tomorrow. Try to hear my voice in the back of your mind saying one more. Let's take a deep breath. Let's grab a drink of water, and let's get back out there and try to get one more question right. Because that one more question is worth another point on the science section. That one more question is worth another point on the reading section. And who knows? That could be the difference between a 29 and a 30 overall. One question really can make the difference. Not kidding, on the ACT. That's a true statement. Okay, so again, I want you guys to get fired up for tomorrow. We do have to have this math. We do have to do this math video. I'm going to be absolutely exhausted because I'm probably going to talk too much in that one too. But you guys got to get ready to go for tomorrow. Again, a couple things. Make sure you make sure you have those 5 essential items ready to go. It's in the comments section if you didn't see that post earlier. And then make sure that you have the app and have your student account. Again, it's free. It's particularly important for ACT test takers because there's not a Khan Academy for ACT. You can download the app. It's free. It has all of our content and all of our practice questions in it. And you just have to start doing some practice problems in the morning when you're standing in line waiting to register. Do a few. Think about verb tense rather than the mask you're wearing. Think as annoying as that is. Think about punctuation. Think about comma rules rather than thinking about how poorly the test could go for you. And then get ready to go. When that test is going to start, you guys are going to crush it. I guarantee it. And if you guys have any questions for us, make sure that you comment below this video or below any of our videos that you're watching tonight. And our teachers and tutors will be around to make sure that we answer those. Okay, guys, you're going to do such a great job. I can't wait to hear how everything goes tomorrow. Our SAT math live stream for the CO2 math test, I'm going to take it in real time in about 30 minutes. I got to get myself fired up for that because I'm going to start getting drained. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Check out that math video here in 30 minutes. If you guys have any questions for us, comment below. Otherwise, good luck for tomorrow, guys, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much, guys.